Would you give a little background on what H.I.A.S is and where it came from?
Sure. H.I.A.S is the oldest refugee organization in the world. It was established in 1903 to help Jews who were fleeing the Russian Empire, fleeing the pogroms. And we like to say that we used to help refugees because they were Jewish. Today we help refugees because we are Jewish. So we help refugees of all religions and ethnicities, but we do it motivated by Jewish values and our Jewish history. Or if you're talking about the airlift of the Afghans that happened after the fall of Kabul, we were also involved in that, right? So it was the same network of agencies that took in the Afghans who were evacuated to military bases and then moved to communities around the country, again, through the work of refugee resettlement agencies.
As I recall, wasn't the criteria that of the countries that we were putting a hiatus on immigrants were for countries that where the vetting could not be verified, wasn't trustworthy enough?
That was the myth. I mean, that was what they like to say. But in fact, we found the vetting to be highly effective. And you know, the fact of the matter is that we're a Jewish refugee agency, and yet we had no incidents, none whatsoever, no problems with any of the people that were resettled from that region. In fact, it was really rewarding. It did so much to establish a strong rapport between the Syrian refugees that we resettled and the Jewish communities that resettled them. There was a real appreciation by the Syrian refugees that they were being helped by what they called the Jewish family, which was short for Jewish Family Service, who are our partners. So they were vetted. Obviously, no vetting of anybody can ever be 110% secure, yet no refugee resettled here ever committed a lethal act of terror in the history of the refugee program. So clearly, the vetting, maybe we got somewhat lucky, but the vetting has been good enough to keep most bad actors out.
But if you use that standard as a lethal act of terror as the threshold, how do we know that they are not the ones who are on campus now making life difficult for Jews on campus or in the city streets of New York or LA?
Well, again, I think when you look at that, the people who are who are protesting on campus are probably mostly people who were born here. You know, it was
of the Muslims?
I don't know. I don't know where they were born, but I wouldn't hold their refugee status against them. I mean, I want to remind you, one of the most horrifying things I saw in my career was after the Paris attacks.
Which ones?
The ones on November 13th, 2015.
Was that the Bataclan?
The Bataclan?
The Bataclan nightclub where there was a massacre of the Jews it was a Jewish-owned nightclub, or is that you're referring to something different?
No, I don't believe that's what occurred that night. I'm not sure. I mean, there were numerous acts of terror in Paris around that time. This was in the stadium, and there were multiple attacks around Paris that led to the.
Okay.
But in any event, after those particular attacks, there was an outcry against Syrian Muslim refugees in this country, and 31 governors said they were not going to allow Syrian Muslims into their states.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is that there were no Syrian Muslims who were involved in that attack. They were all radicalized Europeans. And yet we had 31 governors who said that because of where someone was born or what their religion was, they would not be allowed into a particular state. And then that was echoed by almost all of the Republican presidential candidates in that campaign, not echoed by the Democratic ones. And this actually marked a moment for us when the refugee resettlement program became a political football, became a political hot potato, which it had never been before. The refugee program had always enjoyed strong bipartisan support because the refugee program recognizes that people are fleeing terror who go through the program and are vetted through the program, not bringing terror to the country. And allegations that they were bringing terror have never been never borne out.
But I'm concerned with anti-Semitic sentiments, attitudes, and hostility.
Right.
So even though they may not be bringing terror, especially the ones who are coming from Middle East countries where there were both raised Muslim, which is inherently anti-Semitic, but also inculcated against Israel. And now that Israel is defending itself against Hamas, but it's portrayed as overreaching, that they're now. So the question is, isn't it risky for Jews to be bringing in Middle East Muslims?
It's risky for Jews not to help refugees who need assistance, because we were once in that position ourselves. And as I said, in my opinion, H.I.A.S did more to fight anti-Semitism than most any other agency, right? Because by welcoming Syrian refugees into our community and having them realize that everything they were taught were lies about Jews, it's really transformational, and that had been proven time and time again.
Right. Do you believe that the people who are protesting or holding, we had here in Los Angeles a fellow who was killed exactly a year ago in Paul Kessler, for instance. Whoever brought him here, I don't think, it seems like a radical mosque. And we've been dealing with this since 1993, World Trade Center time, since 1990, that Middle East Muslims may be risky. And my question is, how do you feel about assuming that risk as a Jewish-rooted charity?
Well, I feel even more strongly, because people made the same arguments in the 1920s about keeping Jews out. They said Jews are radicals, they're unassimilable, they're communists, they're anarchists, and this was rationale that was used to pass the Johnson-Reed Act in 1924. So I don't judge anybody based on their religion or where they come from. Each refugee is interviewed as an individual, and each refugee has to prove that they are not a danger to the United States. And I have faith in the program, because again, this belief that refugees are a danger to the country dates back to the John Adams administration. It's nothing new to this country. The Alien Sedition Acts of the John Adams administration was used for precisely that reason. So the fact of the matter is, this country's been welcoming refugees for over 200 years, and never have they presented a security problem to this country. When you look at it, we've got a pretty strong track record. I believe Europe has a lot more serious difficulty integrating immigrants and refugees, because they don't have that tradition. But I have a strong belief that our country is capable of it, and as long as we continue to be welcoming, we'll continue to be safe.
As long as we're continuing to be welcoming, we'll be safe?
Yes.
And if we stop, we won't be safe?
Well, if we start treating everybody like they're a potential terrorist because of what their religion is, then I think we are setting ourselves up for failure. We have to judge each individual on his or her own character, not on what religion they subscribe to.
How concerned are you that among people who find it risky to be bringing in Middle East Muslims or Afghani Muslims, that it's a Jewish multicultural thing that's bringing in anti-Semitism, that's fomenting anti-Semitism among Gentiles in America?
I mean, I've seen no evidence of that. I've seen no evidence of that.
Evidence of which?
I've seen no evidence that I'm not going to play into, like, if you're saying, are we concerned about the Great Replacement theory, that Jews are bringing in brown people and non-Christians to replace white Christian Americans? That's an anti-Semitic trope. That's an anti-Semitic theory, and I'm not going to let that intimidate us from doing our work.